cameras, huh? Did you get one? You want one too?
The weather this week's been pretty consistent, hovering around the freezing/melting point, with it snowing consistently every day. The snow falling has been wet, and the snow on the ground has been somewhere between the mashed potato consistency and the shaved ice. We've had a lot of good bird sightings lately. Pair of ravens, vultures, several red tails seem to be hanging around, one being an immature. Matt and I saw a Sharpie at the beaver pond this week, and an immature golden eagle. The bird seed's been getting low, probably because the birds are so hungry. We have probably several hundred blackbirds at the feeders, along with some crows and the other usuals, tree sparrows. And of course, the mixed foraging flocks show up at all the smaller bird feeders. These white-throated sparrows reside at the bird feeders most of the time. They eat side by side the other birds, but they seem to be their own independent flock. The cardinals also seem to stay put at a single area, rather than traveling far and wide. This red one is the male. The females are more drab, brown-gray this time of year, and more orange in the summer. He looks really gray, almost blue right now, especially around the wings. That's because the tips of his feathers are longer and gray. As the spring comes, he'll shed off the tips and become the brilliant red. Chickadees are usually the leaders of the flocks. They are energetic, brave, and intelligent. They seldom travel alone, often with many other chickadees, and there's usually a few downy woodpeckers in the flock, a tufted titmouse or two, and some white-breasted nuthatches. This time of year, they are often followed also by dark-eyed juncos. They are an adaptable bunch and can be seen traveling far and wide in their quest for food. A wonderful part of the sanctuary is being able to watch these birds closely. But there's also a lot to worry
some of the
about.
Scotch pines, particularly in this field. The snow weighing down the branches. So far it doesn't look like any damage. Let's hope it stays that way.
Many of the pines had branches weighed down by snow, and a few were even damaged. But overall, most fared well. In the denser groves, which are quickly becoming forests, the weather seems a lot more calm and peaceful. The lower branches in these white pines are getting shaded out and will self-prune in time to come, a part of the maturation process. We've been seeing Radia and Lydia this week, so we decided to continue and finish the Goose Island that we had started and got snowed out on last week. It went relatively quick. Just had to unbury the kayak and the substrate and then build the nest. And now we get to kick back and hope that they have a successful nesting season. I'm getting antsy to put my viewing platforms into the vernal pond, but I know it's going to have to wait a little while. This was it, mostly frozen one day,
for the platform.
and completely buried in the snow the following day. But we have to beat the salamanders in there, and they can come early. I found this yellow spotted salamander in the ski trail one afternoon. As a member of the Ambystoma family, they are amongst the earliest to breed. They come out to breed early in the spring as soon as the snow starts to melt. It is not uncommon to see them crawling over piles of melting snow. But this is too much snow. This cold-blooded amphibian is nearly immobilized by the cold weather. I suspect that the wet snow has seeped into its burrow and flooded it out, fooling it into thinking it's time to go find the swamp about a quarter mile up the hill. As is apparent, Ambystomas are a family of large and robust salamanders. In many localities, acid rain has taken a real toll on the populations of these salamanders. I found a tree with exposed roots and dirt and put the salamander underneath it in hopes that it can burrow in for the remainder of the winter. I cupped my hands around it without making skin-to-skin contact in order to warm it up enough to move and burrow away. When I left him, he was moving, albeit slowly. There was no sign of him or predator tracks the next morning, so I hope he's fine and will return this spring. One night this week must have been exciting around Wicks Pond. One morning, we noticed all of these fresh tracks. A coyote digging something up over there. Rabbit and mouse hopping around this way. Several trails intersecting down by the creek. And of course, a fox circling the rim of the pond. There's been some insect activity lately too. Here is a stonefly. Notice the short wings and the long cerci. These are not known to be strong flyers. And a midgefly. Notice the mosquito-type shape, and that he's using his front legs to feel around, almost as antenna. This one appears to be female. And this midgefly is a male. Notice the feathery antenna. They are in the Capniidae family. They were in much more abundance last February, and I did a long section on them in Nature Journal 40. Unfortunately this time, I was too busy to really focus on them. Usually in the afternoon, Matt attends to the beavers, but he had some prior obligations, so I got put on beaver duty one afternoon. It consists of a lot of waiting for the beavers, especially Julia, to come out and get their sweet potatoes. Julia's the matriarch, 10 years old, so pretty elderly in beavers' terms. We try to pamper her in her old age. But it's not only about the beavers. Muskrats also relish in the spoils. In fact, they're the reasons we like to hand the food to the beavers, because the muskrats take way more than their share, probably storing it and never actually eating it. The geese often also come up for apple slices, or they eat the birdseed we put out for the songbirds. And I had a couple of midgeflies fly in while I was on duty. And eventually Julia and her daughter Tippy. This is Tippy. She's 7 years old and will probably take over the colony after her mother passes. Like Tippy, Julia was also born here and never left. The colony was started nearly 20 years ago after the young of a nuisance beaver was released here. It was apparently sterilized, but obviously 2 decades later, something went wrong in the sterilization.
I can't get any closer. Here, Beav. Good girl.
And beaver duty's a great way to end the week.